If you're talking to a fifth grader about why the government is doing this, or are they doing this to the people with higher credit?
It's not really the government that's doing it. Federal Home Finance Agency. They have basically a mission statement or a mandate to promote home affordability. Hey guys, you want to buy a house? You need a good credit score, but you can still get a house even if you don't have a good credit score.
Today we're talking about the new mortgage tax that's got everyone in a tizzy. Are you really going to get penalized with a higher rate for having good credit? But before we get into that, let's talk headlines from around the world of Orlando business. The high-speed train station at MCO has been unveiled, ladies and gentlemen. Starting this summer, the train will get you from Orlando to Miami in just about 3 hours. Trains will depart from the station at the Orlando airport as early as 5 a.m. And there's going to be 16 daily round trips between Miami and Orlando. One-way fares start at $79 with premium fares starting at $149. They announced at the unveiling that they'll also have a product that allows a family of 4 to take the train for under $200. Darden just bought Ruth's Chris for $715 million. This was an all-cash deal that values Ruth's at $21.50 per share. Their stock price closed at $16.03 on May 2nd. Both Darden and Ruth's Hospitality Group are based right here in Orlando, which makes this deal extra special. If you're not familiar with Darden, they're the company that owns Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Bahama Breeze, and a slew of other restaurants. They've created over 1,000 jobs here in Orlando through their restaurant support center, and they're one of the country's top 50 private employers with over 180,000 team members across North America. Ruth's started way back in 1965 in New Orleans and moved to Central Florida in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina. They have 80 company-owned restaurants and 74 franchise locations worldwide. CEO Cheryl Henry is expected to stay on as president of Ruth's Chris and report to Darden CEO Rick Cardenas. Restaurant analyst John Gordon said that in his opinion, there's no doubt that Ruth's Chris office in Winter Park will be eventually closed and will be consolidated into the Darden building. We'll see if that prediction comes true. Space Florida is looking for their next CEO. Frank DeBello, the current president and CEO, will be retiring at the end of June after leading Space Florida for 14 years. Florida's aerospace sector has evolved over the last decade since NASA's space shuttle program shut down to become a top spot for the manufacturing and launch operations for private space companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin. Space Florida has negotiated with a ton of commercial space companies to lure them to the Space Coast or keep them here. They help companies find offices, manufacturing space, and build a local talent pipeline. In 2022, Space Florida's 60-person staff recruited or retained roughly 6,000 jobs. They've had a $5.9 billion economic impact on the state of Florida since 2007, and starting this year, they're expected to have a $1.1 billion annual economic impact. That's it for headlines. Now let's get into our story of the day. Our guest for this segment today is Dan Clifton. He's the principal broker at Clifton Mortgage Services. Dan, welcome to Orlando Business.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks so much.
So, Dan, everyone seems to be losing their minds over this new quote unquote unfair mortgage tax that's going to penalize people with good credit. You obviously live and breathe in this space. What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, I think first to step back a second, I think the important thing to know and understand is sort of how interest rates work. I kind of always say that interest rates don't change. What changes is the price for the rate. So when you look at an interest rate, there's either a cost or a credit that's assigned to that rate based upon the mortgage-backed security market. With that, there's always been what's called loan level price adjustments or risk adjustments based upon credit score and the amount of down payment that you're putting. And what's changed is how that is spread out. So it's not really an unfair mortgage tax. What they've done is they've tried to make it more affordable for low income score borrowers in the higher loan to value bracket, so less down payment. And they've taken those loan level price adjustments and reduced them for those borrowers in that category.
Okay.
Obviously, they have to make up for that somewhere, so it's been spread out amongst the other categories. So that's where you get into a little bit of there's a tax on mortgages that's coming about that's not fair.
Yeah. And you laid out in an email that you sent to your newsletter subscribers kind of a visual that was helpful to see, that when you look at the when you look at the adjustment that was made, you can understand why people would be losing their minds. But that's just because you're looking at the percentage of the change. Just to clear the air, it is not going to be advantageous for someone to go tank their credit score
not
at
all.
to get a better interest rate.
No, that's not at all. So, if you have a higher credit score, you're going to have a better interest rate. And that's the bottom line.
It's just the difference between what your mortgage is going to cost you versus somebody with a lower credit score. It's still going to be, the person with a lower credit score is still going to pay more.
Correct.
It's just the gap between those two is smaller now than it was
Correct.
before.
The person with the lower credit score is going to pay more, but they're not paying as much as they used to. And the person with the higher credit score, in not every instance, but a lot of the instances, they're paying more than what they did before, but they're still paying less than lower credit scores.
Got it.
Now there are some pockets where you fit in, you're actually paying less than you would have before. So a good example is, everybody loves their credit score and they like to talk about, I've got an 800 and so on. And there's lots of different score models. In the mortgage world previously, 740 was the top score. And I would get clients all the time to come and say, well, I got an 800 score, I should get a better deal. I'm like, well, 740 is the top, that's it. Well, the new adjustments, it's added 2 new bands. It's added 741 to 760, 761 to 780. And then, so now you get a little bit of a benefit for saying, hey, I got an 800 score, whereas somebody with 740 was the same. It's not that way anymore.
Got it. So if you're talking to a 5th grader, which when it comes to this kind of stuff, I feel like a 5th grader a lot of times. So
sometimes I do too.
If you're talking to a 5th grader about kind of why the government is doing this, seemingly, for a lot of folks on the right, why are they doing this to the people with higher credit? Explain it like you would explain it to a 5th grader.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's not really the government that's doing it. It's the Federal Home Finance Agency.
Okay.
They have basically a mission statement or a mandate to promote home affordability for lower income borrowers and underserved borrowers.
And this is Fannie and Freddie.
Well, Fannie and Freddie are under them. So they're government sponsored enterprises. So FHFA says, hey, this is what we want to do. Fannie and Freddie then says, what are we going to do to be in line with what FHFA is telling us? Okay. So Fannie and Freddie then comes out with this new LLPA grid. So basically what it is, hey guys, you want to buy a house? You need a good credit score, but you can still get a house even if you don't have a good credit score. And before this change, it was actually difficult for somebody with a low credit score, with a low down payment, to get a house. I don't want to get too technical on it, but with the pricing adjustments, it adds cost and fees and so on. And there's also a limit to the amount of cost and fees that you're allowed to have on a loan. And there's a limit to the spread that the APR, that's the annual percentage rate, can vary over the average interest rate. And if you had a 620 score and you were putting 3% down, you were actually in a non-qualified loan. You didn't qualify, even if you could afford the loan, because you were higher than the APR spread allowed, and you had more points and fees than allowed. And it was basically, you can't do this loan. So then now we had to go to an FHA loan. And as you know, in the last couple of years, realtors wouldn't even entertain a contract with FHA. So they were kind of effectively shut out. So this is a bit of a reaction to help borrowers get into homes.
Got it. Is there anything else about this whole thing, Dan, that we should be talking about before we let you go today?
Again, misconceptions and how things are presented in the press. If you have questions, I would always say contact your professional mortgage advisor. Whether it's me, somebody else, or so on. A person that that you can talk to. Not your cousin's aunt, sister's barber who may or may not have closed a loan one time back in 2005. Things change all the time. There's always been changes to these loan level price adjustments. There's some other changes in this that have not really made it into the press. They've added an increase for refinances, so it makes refinances a little bit more expensive. But again, all of these items are done to promote home ownership. And remember that the reason why Fannie and Freddie were created originally was to promote affordability, to stabilize mortgages, and to make them so that there's liquidity in the market. And that's what they're trying to do to continue to adapt to make mortgages available and affordable for everybody.
I love it. Dan, if somebody's watching this and they don't have a good mortgage advisor, how can they stay connected with you?
Very easy. They can go onto my website, sign up to our newsletter there. It's cliftonmortgageservices.com. A little bit long, but that's what was available and fits. So sign up there, and then they can stay connected, and they can get weekly newsletters. And I'm personal and service oriented, so phone, text, email, I always respond to as well.
I love it. And I can speak to your newsletter. That's actually how we connected. One of our mutual friends gets your newsletter and was telling me about it over lunch. He was saying, he writes it in a very, very fun tone. I read it because he obviously forwarded it to me. So definitely go to Dan's website, get on his newsletter if you're interested in this, and obviously connect with Dan. If you're in a situation you need some advice, Dan can help you with that. So thanks a lot, man, for being
Pleasure
here.
being here. Thank you so much.
Now it's time for my favorite segment where I talk about one of my favorite people, places, or things. It's unpaid advertising for the stuff that makes my heart happy. And today I've got to tell you about Spindrift. So I gave up soda about a year and a half ago, and I've been on a quest to find a healthier alternative that doesn't have sucralose in it. My buddy told me that sucralose is bad, so I'm listening to him. And I found exactly what I was looking for with Spindrift. It's sparkling water that doesn't taste like someone sneezed a fruit into it. It's got real squeezed fruit in it. So some of my favorite flavors, blood orange tangerine, that's probably my favorite. I also like the lemon flavor. The lime flavor is also good. I'm not a huge fan of raspberry lime for whatever reason. That tickles my taste buds funny. So if you're looking to kick your soda habit like me, or you're just looking for something a little more exciting than regular old bottled water, try Spindrift and thank me later. All right, folks, I'm James Carbary, and that's it for this episode of Orlando Business. It's brought to you by my next entrepreneurial adventure, Out of Office Orlando, a co-working content studio we're building in Winter Garden where you can create content, connect with other local professionals, take a dip in our lazy river, or get a lap in on our outdoor electric go-kart track. It's like a country club where you can be productive, and I really think you're going to love it. If you're interested in learning more, shoot me an email at james@sweetfishmedia.com or send me a DM on LinkedIn, whatever tickles your fancy. And with that said, I'm out.